breakdown, or maybe you just have a bike that's not street legal, a lot of the times you might find yourself needing to transport your bike in a method that doesn't use its own power. So we're here to show you how to load a motorcycle into the bed of a pickup truck. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of different ways to do this, a lot of ways to skin this cat. We're just showing you one. We're using our motorcycle and our truck. Your setup may differ entirely. So there's two things you need to think about when you're actually transporting a motorcycle if you're new to this. You need to think about loading the motorcycle, getting it from here to up in here, and then the second step is securing the motorcycle. You need to think about actually locking it down and securing it to the transport vehicle. Now if you don't want to hear me prattle on, you can click below and skip to any section in the video to get right to the meat and potatoes to learn how to do this stuff safely. Now I have some general thoughts about loading a motorcycle into a truck. The easiest way to transport a motorcycle with a truck is to pull it with a trailer. Trailers are a great way to load a motorcycle. It's very easy to use them, typically because they're very low. The deck height on them is much lower than a pickup truck. Trucks are very high. That means you're fighting a lot of gravity, and unfortunately, because motorcycles are heavy, they're hard to control when they're up above you. You're using a lot of upper body strength to move your motorcycle, which isn't what most of us are accustomed to doing. So it can pay to ask a buddy who has a trailer to use the thing. One of the other things you want to consider too is how difficult this is going to be. Most of you are familiar with watching our videos and getting a BSD, or Beard Scale of Difficulty, where we tell you whether or not you can do this, and you can sort of use your judgment to figure it out. Unfortunately, due to the large variety of trucks, of motorcycles, of equipment, experience levels, we can't really tell you how easy this is going to be. It really does vary. However, if you do go ahead and watch our video, use some of the tips and tricks we're going to give you, my guess is that you're going to have a little bit easier time than if you try and go it alone. So let's get right into some of the preparatory steps you're going to need to get loading your motorcycle. One of the first tips I can give you is this. Find a hill. If you have access to a hill anywhere around you, the area you're going to be loading the motorcycle, it's going to make things a lot easier for you. The reason being is a hill allows you to load down into the bed of the truck from above. Mother Nature takes care of a lot of the gravity work for you. Rather than loading up and you having to push the bike in there, all you have to worry about is steering and braking, not actually propelling the motorcycle up into the truck. If you have a hill handy, use it. Some of the other preparatory steps too are also important. I've gone ahead and done some of them. Let me run you through them real quick. The first thing I actually did in the cab of the truck. What I did was I threw this thing into gear and I set the emergency brake. That's going to keep the truck locked into place. It can be super disconcerting if you have a heavy motorcycle on a ramp and all of a sudden the truck starts rolling. Make sure you start with the basics. The next thing you might notice too is that wheel chock that's bolted down there in the bed of the truck. We just have it ratchet strapped in. Some of you guys might wind up bolting it, permanently installing it. We've shown you a temporary installation though, because my guess is not all of you have a pickup truck and you may be borrowing one from a buddy. They may not be comfortable with you putting holes in their bed. A temporary install is okay if you need it. Keep in mind, the chock is going to keep that front wheel straight. That's really important because that's going to be our main tie-down point to secure the motorcycle later in the video. The final preparatory step I've taken here is to have removed the tailgate. You'll notice there's no tailgate actually on this truck. That's important too because tailgates can't always bear the weight of a motorcycle. I used to work at a junkyard and I can't tell you how many tailgates I sold to somebody who tacoed it loading a too heavy motorcycle on there. If one of the cables that holds the tailgate up too should break, you're going to damage your motorcycle, you're probably going to get hurt, and you might also hurt the truck. If you have the option of taking the gate off, I would recommend doing it. So let's talk about what we actually need to do to get things started now. I need to get this ramp into place. So I have a nice sturdy ramp here, and I'm going to line this up with the center line of the truck, which, not coincidentally, is also where I have my chock lined up. The reason I want all this stuff centered is so I don't have to worry so much about steering. I can get the bike right up in place and really worry about keeping the bike safe rather than trying to move it around. That's important. Rather than just leaving this thing here as it is and running the bike up it though, I'm going to secure the ramp to the truck. Securing things really is the name of the game when you're loading a motorcycle into a truck and transporting it. The more secure things are, the less chance for unplanned movement there is, the better chance you have at safety and a total lack of damage. So I'm going to use a ratchet strap actually to tie this thing to the truck. And when I set up my ratchet strap, I'm going to set it up so it applies downward pressure in the same direction that the motorcycle will exert its force. By locking this thing deep into place here, it's not going to slide up into the bed or perhaps out to the side. That can be detrimental to your motorcycle's health and well-being. Now at this stage, it's time to grab your final piece of equipment, and that's a good buddy. Now before you guys attempt to start loading, make sure you have a quick powwow. Make sure everybody's clear on what it is they're going to be doing. We're going to utilize a method called the handoff. Let me show you how this plays out just a little bit, and I'll set it up for you. You're going to line the bike up. You are going to handle steering and braking duties, and your buddy's sole job is propulsion of the motorcycle. You're going to start getting the bike up into the truck, and as it comes over the ramp, you're going to notice you hit the bumper of the truck. At this point, you're going to hold the weight of the bike. Keep your hand on the brake and keep the balance of the bike upright. Your buddy, meanwhile, is going to jump into the bed of the truck, and this is where the handoff itself occurs. You give him control of the bars, he's now going to steer and brake, and you're going to finish up propelling the bike that last little bit into the bed of the truck. You're going to know the load is coming to an end when you feel the front wheel hit that wheel chock and you hear the chock flip over. At that point, the load is complete. Have your buddy get on top of the bike and sit on it, and he's setting you up for the next step. Spurgeon's on top of this bike. He's keeping it from tipping over or rolling out. I'm going to get this ramp out of the way, and then we're going to move on to the next phase of things, securing the motorcycle for transport. Okay, now it's time to strap down the front of the motorcycle. Much like loading, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you one of the methods I employ. Now, locking in the front is important. This is your main point of securing the motorcycle. There's a couple different places you can use. You can use the frame or perhaps crash bars if you have them, or we can use the spot I'm about to use right now, the fork tube leg right above the triple tree. So what I'm going to do is ratchet this thing into place, and I'm having an easy time of this because Spurgeon is still sitting on the motorcycle. He's compressing the suspension for me. Once I get this thing ratcheted down, as I see the suspension start to drop just a little bit, I can then tie up all these loose ends here to keep this from getting anywhere into the motorcycle or into the moving parts of the truck. I'm going to repeat this process on the other side as well. Ratchet things down, get the suspension compressed, and you'll watch the bike start to draw upright. At that point, the front end is locked in, and you can have your buddy hop off the bike. All right, the front of the bike, as you can see, is locked in solid, but we're not quite done yet. We want to also secure the rear of the motorcycle as well. Now, the rear of the motorcycle is definitely going to be a secondary attachment point, but it's important in case something up front goes wrong. If the bike shifts or a ratchet strap comes loose, what the rear attachment is going to allow us to do is get pulled over safely before we have any type of damage occur. It'll give you sort of an added insurance to make sure that nothing bad happens to the bike. Now, when you're ratcheting down back here, the process is very similar to up front, but we're not ratcheting down nearly as aggressively. The reason being is because a lot of the parts of the rear of a motorcycle are kind of delicate. If you're using your subframe, it's not nearly as tough as the main frame, and you can see here we're using a passenger foot peg. Again, it's a great place to tie down for a secondary mount, but because it's cantilevered so far off the motorcycle, it's easy to damage things. Don't get too aggressive. Just watch that suspension squat a little bit, and you should be okay. Repeat the process on the other side, making sure that you, again, tie off any excess strap material so it doesn't damage the motorcycle.